Hello, everybody. We're bringing you Block Digest number 77 on Sunday, February 4th. Block height 507,626. So why don't you say hello, everybody?
Hey, everyone. How are y'all doing today?
Hey, guys. Happy Sunday. I think Janine is too busy with her multi-level marketing scheme.
No, I didn't know if there was going to be an introduction or for everyone is just shouting out.
I'm really not a fan of the intro, but Shinobi, Rick, JW, and Janine just introduced themselves in that order. So, do we want to dive into the Twitterverse, guys?
Absolutely.
Uh-oh. I almost did a recursive screen share. Hey guys, they were right. It's a bubble. All the people who were telling us that it's a bubble around like $30, that it's a bubble around like $300. We crashed all the way to $8,000, guys. Bubble confirmed. Oh my God.
Oh no, October prices.
Yeah, right.
It was a good run. It was a good run. It was a 9-year experiment to try to free humanity from slavery. We gave it our best shot, but let's pack it up.
Yeah, but I really think this is like the funniest thing in the world. And I mean, you look at Eamon Gunsire, Mr. Crypto Expert, the discoverer of selfish mining. Bullshit! They were talking about it in 2010. Is liking Paul Krugman here shitting on Bitcoin. I mean, isn't he supposed to be a Bitcoiner, guys?
And Paul Krugman's tweet is crypto fraud feud Freud. Cryptofreudian. There we go. All right, yeah. Janine, you explain this tweet for anybody that's not watching.
Yeah, so I believe the intention of Mr. Krugman, or Wizard as he is also known, I believe his intention was to reference Schadenfreude, which is a German word, which means to take pleasure in other people's pain or misfortune. It's literally a combination of two words. You have Schaden, which is pain or displeasure or misfortune, and then you have Freude, which is pleasure or happiness or joy. Combine, Germans do that a lot. They combine two words and it creates this entirely new concept. And so people use it a lot to, when their enemies fall on hard times. But I would question whether Krugman was really that effective in this case, because I mean, if you're combining crypto and Freude, if the definition of Schadenfreude is taking pleasure in people's pain, then wouldn't the definition of Cryptofreude be something like taking pleasure in cryptocurrency or crypto? I mean, it doesn't, I get what he's trying to do, but if you really wanted to
hot bothered.
Yeah, I mean, it would have made more sense to just use like a really big, if you want to use a German word, German's like really long words, so it should have been Crypto Schadenfreude, but whatever, Cryptofreude doesn't exactly fit, but let's go with it.
That's right. That's kind of his thing, is pretending to be smarter than he is and insulting people. So that makes sense.
Yeah, but Bitcoin cultists, we tend to be nasty as well as crazy, right, guys?
Well, what I thought was,
as he's taking pleasure in our pain, he's calling us nasty and crazy.
Well, I thought it was funny. Dan Darkpill made a comment below that saying whether he was still experiencing internet Freude, because he said the internet would have less influence than the fax machine. I'm not sure where it is. It's got to be somewhere down there. But yeah, internet Freude, guys. I bet he still has that one.
Yeah, I'm enjoying my fax machine Freude right now.
Yeah, he's it's not like he's using the internet to express his crypto Freude, but maybe someday he'll be using.
Did you guys? Did you see that T-shirt that Beautyon made, where it's just like the fax machine and Krugman under it?
No, I didn't see that. That's beautiful.
Yeah, that's definitely something everybody should grab one of. Because I mean, if anybody's a cultist, it's definitely the Bitcoiners, right, guys? I mean, am I right? Like it's not like economists dress up in crazy, fancy, weird robes with strange staffs a lot, right?
Where is that picture from? Does anyone know? Like, is it really just an award ceremony? Is that the award ceremony for the Nobel Prize? Is that what it is?
Looks like a Mardi Gras pre-party.
Yeah.
We're looking at a picture of Krugman and presumably a bunch of other either economists or professors in their colored robes. It looks more like I don't know, like African nations showing up to the UN than anything else. Except they also have like 8-foot staffs that have like crystal balls on top that are like, I don't know, 6-inch circumference. It's something.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure MG in the chat just pointed out these are, I'm pretty sure, Mason robes. And I will preface here that not all Masons are crazy, arrogant, delusional cultists like Paul Krugman. They're not all bad.
Well, actually, when I saw Krugman's robe there, it actually, I mean, isn't that like the same colors? It reminds me of the gay marriage sign that was going around for a while. It was like a red square and then equality sign in like pink. That's what it reminds me of.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Like if you like turn Krugman to the right, like around to the right, you can see it.
Krugman, can you just move just 90 degrees? All right, perfect.
Economists are people too. All right. Let's slide along to some cool news. Mempool going down, number of output for transactions going up. Dare I say, people are learning to batch transactions? I mean, is Coinbase pulling their heads out of their ass, guys? Is this too much to hope for?
I think it might be too much to hope for. That would be my guess.
I hope not, but I mean, like, if they want to compete, I'd start doing stuff like that.
I mean, like, this is steadily climbing, so I'm gonna cautiously be optimistic here.
Yeah, and I think if you want to see the chart that number of outputs came from, I believe the website is outputs.today. Yeah. So if you want to see, that basically shows that, because there's a description above that I think is useful for people, because probably most people won't understand why transaction graphs versus output graphs are important. But the reason it's important is because obviously, when exchanges do withdrawals and stuff, that's one transaction most of the time. And so that doesn't really give an accurate representation of the economic activity. And so when you have outputs, that means, obviously that's going to multiple transactions or multiple addresses, which gives a better indicator of how much activity there is.
So when I saw this, my thought was that this was, and maybe I didn't spend enough time with it, but my thought was that this just means that we have fewer people spamming the mempool at the moment and putting a bunch of transactions. Like if you're going to spam the mempool, you might as well just do a bunch of the same output and then use that output and split them out. That way it's easier to keep track of. I don't know, but it definitely seems like there's a lot less garbagey looking transactions in the mempool also.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the more I've been thinking about it the past few days, I think in all likelihood, the high fee market was probably a combination of just on-chain transactions with people flooding in to buy Bitcoin and pulling them off exchanges or wherever they bought them. And that is like the perfect time to hit with a spam attack. When you have like a large organic stampede, like in terms of users using block space, and then you just nail it home right there with spam and drive it even further up. And that's just like, you know what I mean? It's like the perfect time.
Yeah, that's the right time to do it.
Your buck.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. And I mean, there definitely was some spam that was a part of that, in the sense that we saw miners mining transactions that had like 1 or 2 Satoshis per byte and ignoring transactions that had like 200 or 300 Satoshis per byte. So there's definitely some gaming of the system there at the very least.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I don't know. It's really like we just got to wait and see for the next big pump and see if the pattern repeats itself. And I mean, like one thing, like as time has gone on and we've seen more and more indications of spam attacks, more and more people are just throwing themselves at really crawling through the blockchain and actually analyzing things. I mean, like people for fun will just like start tracing the transactions and seeing where they can find like loops where you have a bunch of outputs fragment and then come back to like a single address or point of control and really trying to fingerprint these things. And I mean, like I've seen some crazy stuff, like literally just addresses spamming things back to themselves, like an address sending to itself constantly with dust outputs over and over again. And I mean, when you come to things like that, there's really like no rational reason to be transacting like that except to just exacerbate fees or eat up block space just to take it away from other people.
Yeah, you're right about the timing on that. That spam attack sort of really did come with the rise, and it sort of just disappeared and about the time with this drop and everything. But yeah, it's like we're gonna have to kind of wait and see on the next rise, I guess, to really see if they're playing that game. But if they are, I think, like you're saying, there's just more people that are going to be paying attention to these sort of things for fun, and it's just going to hurt them in the long run. It'll be more political blowback as far as just like people understanding that it's hurting the network. Maybe they'll just have a better understanding of what's going on, and there'll be a bigger blowback for them on doing that, and more people start switching to retail, companies that are doing batch transactions and SegWit addresses and everything to help the network.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it kind of sucks from like the user point of view that we don't have a real privacy solution on the chain itself. But in cases like this, it's a huge benefit because like you're transacting on the chain that's creating patterns. And eventually, if you go back to condense outputs you're spamming with, like those coins are going to get tagged. They're going to get identified and they're going to be followed everywhere they go on the chain. And I mean, until we actually have something like confidential transactions, it's that double-edged sword. Like we have less privacy, but so do people who are maliciously abusing chain space. All right, Janine, do we want to go over the people asking for their word back?
And who would those people be?
Cryptographers.
Nice.
Well, I mean, this has been I don't know when this battle started, but it's been waging for a while now, and if I was him, I wouldn't make a kind of bet about whether cryptography will win back crypto based on Bitcoin's price, considering that very few people thought it would go above $5,000 this year. Like this is a war. You may win the battle, but you lose the war. So if you wanna base like the integrity of your language on the price of a volatile asset, go ahead. But
yeah, Nareej, one of my favorite trolls on Twitter right now. You can have it back when Bitcoin stops running.
I don't think they'd get it back even if all we had was coins that don't even use cryptography.
Right, and that crypto, it's by this point, yeah, everybody's talking crypto and raps and everything about how to get rich. It's that word's gone.
I think Ripple, it doesn't have any cryptography at all, but even if that thing still exists, I don't think they get their word back.
Well, it's just kind of weird because crypto doesn't. I mean, crypto means secret, so I don't see how we have to automatically assume that it means cryptography. That's just it's basically it's a game of favoritism, basically, and the fact that a bunch of cryptographers who could have been involved in this technology but weren't cypherpunks are maybe upset at the fact that they missed the opportunity.
Yeah, this is a back and forth I just went into, so I don't quite understand that much other than like, yeah, the crypto word is one of those words that's just sort of been taken and it's running off with the culture right now.
Yeah, I mean it's how words work. It's like Bcash. Like you guys can you can do your Zcash fork. You can try and call it Bcash, but we all know what the real Bcash is, and we're not going to stop using that word.
It's classic, right?
Oh yeah, it's clashy. That's right.
Classic is still running.
Yeah, everybody likes to pretend that Classic is dead, that it doesn't exist, but no, blockchains don't die. So I'm looking forward to the next Bcash hard fork and the next leftover chain they leave behind, because I'm pretty sure it's not going to go anywhere.
Oh, this is going to be a nightmare for him.
It would be really funny though if, you know, the cryptographers did agree on a price of Bitcoin at which crypto would then become cryptography, and then like too many people buy Bitcoin like just to keep it above that price.
Yeah, let's settle this once and for all. When it goes above 20,000, we can't talk about this anymore.
I mean, okay. It's like there's so many people in the space having like mood swings from hour to hour because of how the price is moving, that they're like, 1 minute they're like telling everyone who follows them on Twitter to sell and be like, you bunch of noobs, this market is not the same. I've never seen this before. I've been in Bitcoin since 2011. But of course,
who can be that retarded? Come on, that's ridiculous. I don't buy it.
Well, you know, all the people who sent charts about how this correction was so predictable, like, you just don't get it. You're not trendy.
No, I was just trying to goad you into doing a screen share there. Sorry.
Oh no! What? No, there's just. Are you talking? What are you kidding? This is like real, guys. Oh wait, the price just went up, and I just suddenly remembered. Cypherpunks are awesome. Like I don't remember who they were or what they said, but you know, I read the Wikipedia page before I went on the Kaiser report, and you know.
The only thing I'm sure of is adoption is just not going to happen. I mean, that's an absurd concept. We're not going to see Bitcoin adoption. Not when the price is falling.
Oh no, yeah, the price is going down now. How did you guys not see that this market was going to be choppy? Doesn't this happen like every year around January and February? I'm not really sure, but I think I saw it on my.
Bitcoin only works if it only goes up. The second it starts going down, it failed. Like it failed. It doesn't work anymore. Pack up your bags, go home, everybody. It's over. It's going down now.
Yeah, I'm gonna go over into Ethereum now. This is just too crazy.
Yeah,
Ether never goes down. Ether never goes down because the course of Bitcoin's going down. That means everything else is going up.
Yeah, I wish people would stop being so emotional with the price, like hour to hour like that.
But I thought if Bitcoin goes down, then an altcoin wins. Isn't that how it works?
Shinobi, I'm just too smart for you. Do you know how many people I've fired? It's probably more people than you've met in your life.
Damn.
Have you written some assembler code so that it's super secure and can't be understood by anybody else?
What?
The details aren't really important. I have this super smart friend. He'll tell you all about it later.
Dude, only machines can understand assembly code, JW. Like, what if it's an assembly? Nobody can figure it out.
Ultimate encryption. There's no way that the most simple version of computer instructions could ever be interpreted by humans.
Yeah, I mean, there's no dude, are you telling me you can understand like when a piece of data is being moved from memory to a register? Like, you can't understand that. You can't make sense of that.
Guys, I took this multi-level marketing class, and they told me that whenever, you have that little critical voice in your head that's, always telling you, if you've been mining since 2011, why do you need such pathetic and spammy passive income streams? And then when I hear that voice, I just imagine it in a really funny accent. And then, the voice no longer sounds like someone real, and it's much easier to just tune it out. Now, who wants to buy my candlestick?
Ouch.
Oh, Bitcoin Dracula. Come on, man.
Oh, man. Okay. we all have our fun now.
That's some good fun.
What are you talking about? The fun never ends.
You're right.
When the
All right.
when the price changes direction, you know, the whole mood changes. I'm a completely different person.
All right.
I'm sure we'll have other stuff to make fun of in 3 days, so we can stop it.
Okay. All right. Let's get into some
Click my
serious...
referral links.
Okay. Whew. Bitcoin colonialism, people. Yep, it's happening again. There's more cases of this. So, Sberbank, I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that right, a Russian state bank, is going to open a cryptocurrency exchange in its Swiss branch. In following with how they're handling things domestically, they're only going to be selling to accredited investors. This is not going to be a retail exchange like Coinbase or Kraken or any of the other ones people are probably most familiar with. And they are expanding into their Swiss branch because of the current regulatory and legal status in Russia. And what their entire logic here is, where did that go? Okay, somewhere in this big wall of text, the rationale is to increase state tax revenue. So Russia is literally expanding into a foreign country with a cryptocurrency exchange to generate revenue for the state. Exactly like I was rambling and hypothesizing with Huobi and OKCoin's expand in Korea, and we'll see somewhere else in a second. Russia is using cryptocurrency as a way to try to generate capital inflows for their country. Like this is now becoming a very serious geopolitical dynamic. Like countries are using this to draw in tax revenue. Like how wicked is that?
Yeah, it's definitely having some geopolitical effects as far as just like, you know, I mean, where are they going to get this revenue? It's somewhere where it's favorable, and it's like the regulations are all there. And I mean, it looks like they're trying to get favorable regulations there. But yeah, that just sitting over there, sucking up income and bringing it back to the Russian state like that, that's definitely gonna, I don't know, it seems like that wouldn't be allowed to happen, but you know, we'll see. That's the plan. So we'll see if it goes through.
Every little bit helps. The more the sort of established old guard gets invested, the less likely it is that they're going to want to do anything to harm what they've invested in. So all good.
Well, I just think this is really interesting. For those who haven't read The Sovereign Individual, read it. You should read it. It's a pivotal thing in this space. You have no business being here if you haven't read it. It's a little bit of hyperbole, but you still should read it. But
not on Kindle. I don't recommend it.
This is showing a dynamic where countries are now starting to act like actual businesses. They are trying to compete to actually attract the wealthy's money, because, you know, like I said, this is not going to be something open to retail investors. This is going to be institutional money, accredited investors in Switzerland. And Russia, it's not here, give us this money. It's not here, the threat of the state, we're generating tax, it's no, we're going to compete and offer this service to try to attract your money. And I think this is very subtle. It's not something the dynamic of is immediately obvious, but it is a switch in how nation states generally go about handling situations like this. They have to compete to attract this money because they can't use their usual toolkit of implying force or threatening force to get that money. They have to convince people to give it to them.
Yeah, it's that opt-in system, right? And I mean, like we're starting to see that in like I think that was Belarus, where it's like if you move over there and you don't, you get to follow westernized laws even though you're over there, and it's like yeah, it's a different dynamic fight that it's definitely just starting to play out, and it's going to be interesting to see how it unfolds. But yeah, it's definitely got value in crypto and Bitcoin all wrapped up in it, so it's it's gonna get weird.
I mean, like it really is like just this thing, cryptocurrency existing, just it being there is causing this kind of dynamic flip. I mean, like that's mind-boggling. Like just a few years ago, it was not uncommon to just have that fatalistic attitude about getting to this point, about having any chance of being something like a reserve asset, a reserve currency, of really being a huge thing in terms of big financial assets. And here we're knocking on the door. We're literally seeing major superpowers start to change how they're playing the game, so to say, just because of the mere presence of cryptocurrency.
Yeah, it's a dynamic, like you're saying. It's something that's not exactly easy to see how it's going to play out. That's where I'm saying it's going to get weird, because it's something where I don't know. It's like the ball's rolling, but it's like the cat's out the bag. It's just follow it along, see where it goes, and try and get people to put their value in the right place.
I'm pretty paranoid, but it does kind of feel like we're over the hump. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'm becoming optimistic in my old age, but it does feel like we might be to the point where there's more people that are at least headed towards being invested than are willing to defend the old system.
Oh man. And I guess next up, very similar story. Huobi is expanding into the US. And this is pretty hot on the heels of them signing a deal with SBI in Japan to try to expand into the Japanese market after taking steps to look at complying with the regulatory rules that they have to expand into Korea. And they're opening an office in San Francisco and planning to expand into the US now. And the interesting thing here is Kai Kailong, I hope I'm pronouncing that right,
Sorry.
is saying that the US will be their focus for now. So with the steps they're taking to expand into Japan, into Korea, what's with this sudden about face, quick move into the US and then deciding to concentrate their focus here now?
Well, I mean, all this stuff started to move because of the China ban, right? It's like the regulations became unfavorable, and so they started moving out. And that's where it's like the fluid dynamic of this is like the value can move outside the border. And yeah, it gets strange. Just like you want to try and close it off, and well, now they just move in somewhere else where they can still get the value, and it'll be in that location. That's where it kind of like that ban's going to come back to bite them if they try and just continue to enforce that.
But I mean, like I can't really take anything away from this except the assumption that they're running into friction as far as expanding into Japan or Korea, because like we all know Korea right now is in the middle of kind of drafting regulations, setting up the system that they're doing where the exchanges plug directly into the bank systems and actually have a very in-depth information sharing between the exchanges and the banks, so that traders' information can be reconciled for taxes and regulatory purposes. And as far as Japan goes, like they're pretty far along as far as regulation already. Like they've already set up a licensing system for exchanges, and we'll see something kind of tangentially related to that a little later. But like there's already very kind of strict things that they have to comply with in both of those countries. And this has me wondering if that is adding enough red tape and enough overhead that they're kind of hedging away from that now. Because like with their business being shut down in China, coming to just OTC, and then the further bank pressures in China, like even threatening the potential for OTC trading, that was like, from my perspective, that was what they were counting on, like expansion into Japan and Korea to really keep their business afloat. And this sudden pivot to the US, you know, I have to assume based on this, especially with the comment that this will be where their focus is, that those expansions into Japan and Korea aren't really going so well.
Well, that would make sense, right? Because, like, I mean, I don't know. It's just like the South Korea stories we've been hearing as far as like them just trying to clear up all the multi-level marketing and scams, and just like making sure that exchanges are all KYC'd, and they're building this whole system that, you know, where everybody's going to be, you know, logged into this register, I guess, to be an investor in crypto. And I mean, in Japan, in a story we're going to do later, is like they just had a raid at an exchange, and you know, these sort of stories. It's definitely fluid as far as like whether or not the regulations are going to be favorable or not. So it's a good hedge just to be somewhere else for sure, and go ahead and have that thing moving. Because if it does not work out, then like, all right, we already got something going on here. Or if they both work out, then great.
I kind of have mixed feelings about this. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ginny.
Yeah, I mean, I would first of all question any business. I mean, I guess the U.S. may be an improvement on China, but I don't know how much longer that's going to last from a regulatory perspective. I'm also always surprised when, you know, basically online businesses decide to move to one of the most expensive cities in the country. Like when they say they're moving to San Francisco, does that mean their PO box is going to be there, or they're actually going to have an office in the city? Because like that's one of the most expensive places to have your company.
Yeah, I'm sure that they're going to be there. Yeah, instead of headquarters, but you know, it doesn't mean it's huge. But it does sound like it's an actual office, and it's really common for businesses to set up in Silicon Valley if they have anything to do with tech. Even though I agree the economics seem really absurd, but there's a status element to it. I imagine that maybe it's like being in New York instead of Chicago as a trader. I don't know if the dollars and cents work out, but there's definitely like this theory that if you're just around other people, that you're going to pick up on you know, useful information. You're going to overhear something at the coffee shop. You're just going to be kind of more connected by being there. And like I said, I don't necessarily buy it, but I don't think that's atypical for sure.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, San Francisco is a very specific area. Silicon Valley, if they just moved to Silicon Valley, like Silicon Valley is a lot larger geographically, but for some reason people, you know, when they say San Francisco, they think, or when they say Silicon Valley, they think San Francisco, but I bet that their actual office is going to be somewhere outside of San Francisco. Otherwise, they're going to have a really high rent bill.
Traffic is so bad, though, that you might as well be in like Northern California if you're not going to be in downtown San Francisco at this point, because you're just not going to, you know, it's like a 2-hour drive each way to move, you know, 30 miles. So, yeah, I don't know.
If you're running an online exchange, I don't see why you have to be directly in the city unless you're running like a person-to-person kind of business. I don't see what the benefit is really, unless it's just for the marketing.
Yeah, I mean, maybe to recruit talent, because there is a lot of talent that's there, and there's a lot of developers that are happy to work there and make $150,000 a year, even though it's equivalent to maybe $65,000 a year in the Midwest. For some reason, they're happy to do that. So it's kind of a weird dynamic that's going on there. But yeah, the thing that I always think of with these exchanges in general, whatever move they're making, is I always have mixed feelings about it. Like, yeah, I'm glad that like, Cash App, from Twitter is up and running and you can buy Bitcoin there. But I have this sinking feeling about what that means for people's privacy as they're buying coins when they could be using something like BISC. And, in 10 years, if the stuff that they're buying is worth, 100 times more, they're just so much better off from a security standpoint. So I don't know. I'm always conflicted when it comes to these centralized exchanges, no matter what they're doing.
Yeah, that's where it's like, I don't know. I just see it's a good place to cozy up to, political figures from Washington hanging out in DC and like making sure that you're not going to get shut down.
And I guess we have a surprise visit from Acnex. What's up, dude?
Hey, what's up? Sorry, I was trying to get on, the intelligence agency is trying to keep the man down, the daily struggle.
You got your satellite uplink working and your radiation hat on. You're good to go.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot to mention the 3-letter agency that I work for is ACN.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about ACN? That sounds very interesting.
Wait, JW wasn't kidding? You do work for a 3-letter agency? What the hell did you need?
No, actually, I work for I work for a company that has a really long name, more than 3 letters, but they wish it was 3 letters.
It's German. It's Schadenfreudian Harladen Inc.
Bundesnachrichtendienst.
Oh man. All right. Do we wanna slide along into the silly news from Canada that just makes me want to laugh and facepalm at the same time?
Yeah.
Why is it that the silly news always comes from Canada and Florida?
They're silly people, eh?
Like one of them is tropical and the other is frozen, but they always have like a monopoly on the silly news.
Mm-hmm. But there has been regulatory approval for a blockchain ETF. And for those of you confused what the hell that means, it's something that's going to have exposure to any company directly or indirectly exposed to the development and implementation of blockchain and distributed ledger technology. So if you wanted to invest in shitcoins, but wanted some kind of regulatory safety net, people, here you go. It's the shitcoin exposure for Wall Street.
This is just unbelievable. Just absolutely staggering.
Shitcoin exposure sounds like something you need a vaccine for.
Well, there's one thing I want to know is, are they invested in R3? Because if they're not invested in R3, then I think they're being very negligent in their duty to ensure maximum monetary loss for anybody who invests in this ETF.
Well, I mean, they might be a bit confused because, R3 started off saying it was a blockchain company, or at least you were working on Corda, which was supposed to be some kind of blockchain. Then they decided it was a distributed ledger, and it was definitely not a blockchain. They were very specific about that it was just a hype and misunderstanding. And then mysteriously, it started getting re-added to their marketing material that, in fact, Corda was a blockchain. So they might just be confused.
So you mean like the Bcashers that keep throwing the lightning symbol on their Twitter handles? I think there's a lot of really confused people in this space lately. They don't know what they're doing anymore.
Yeah, I think
I really hope I was just going to say, I really hope that they don't use this as an excuse to not approve U.S. ETFs when this thing blows up.
Oh no.
Well, I mean, stupider things have happened, and I mean, this is just like ridiculously silly to me that an ETF for just companies doing DLTs is approved, but a proper crypto ETF, no.
DLT sounds like a drug. It literally does. Oh wait, I just remembered. Wasn't there someone from Hyperledger they were at breaking Bitcoin or maybe scaling Bitcoin. I can't remember. But I believe she said that getting into blockchain is like the gateway drug.
So like weed.
Well, I'm just disappointed that I haven't been approved to invest in blockchain. I want to buy some blockchain.
But I mean, like, this is like part of that meme of like coming to understand Bitcoin, right? Just like people, they see Bitcoin and they see blockchain, and then they start seeing all these coins, and then eventually maybe they come back to Bitcoin. It's the only like silver lining I could see in this is like, you know, maybe there'll be some capitulation in the end to say like, okay, well, this wasn't the brightest idea. Maybe this Bitcoin ETF is a brighter idea.
Well, they're allowing ETFs for the training wheel of crypto, right? Like this isn't the stuff that should be allowed to be built on top of. This isn't the stuff we want ETFs around. This is the training wheels, and we're saying, okay, like let's put certifications and standards training wheels and let's ignore the bicycle. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, my brain when I see things like this, it just wants to scream. It's ridiculous. But yeah, you had something to say, Jeannie? Yep.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to reference the woman from Hyperledger who says that she specifically said permissioned blockchains were a gateway drug, which I thought was funny. It's like, ooh, so subversive. Permission chains. So tempting.
That look on the Bitcoiner's face says it all.
Yeah, that's about right.
Whoopsies. Yep, he does not look amused. Very unamused. Oh man. All right. I think we're really flying today, guys. Nobody's got any more jokes? Jokes? JW, you don't got any jokes? I think you got some jokes in you.
No. I mean, the best I could come up with right now is that I really need to get a dime bag of blockchain. It's not that great.
Well, it's okay because you can buy fractions of a blockchain. So I think we can hook you up.
Would that be like a penny bag? My knowledge of street culture just ran out. So I don't know.
If you want to be really trendy, you can buy shards of a blockchain.
if you smoke too much blockchain, you end up sharding all over yourself.
Oh goodness.
Oh man, jokes for days.
That's it. That's all I got.
Alrighty then. Well,
We all need to come back with like floral blouses, and then the whole room will be lit up.
How about the only way to keep Bitcoin Dracula from coming after you is to shard?
No, it's stake. You need to use the stake. You need to start staking. Stake things.
It's like animals. When there's a predator coming after them, they either fight or flight or just shard all over themselves. So if Bitcoin Dracula is on you, trying to get you to buy his coin, just shard and run away.
All right. In other news, a miner is attempting to set up a large mining plant in Messina, which is a town in northern New York State. And this is a pretty much a subsidiary of a company called Coincheck. Wants to invest $165 million into a plant in northern New York State, and are specifically approaching the New York Power Authority to negotiate a deal for 15 megawatts of power. So this is kind of interesting because like I was saying the other day, I pulled up that graphic with the price estimations for producing 1 Bitcoin in the US, and we can guesstimate that those costs have roughly doubled since that was published. But we still have a huge operation like this planning to sink literally more than $100 million into a mining operation in the US. So I think despite the little slump, the little not going up, there's still huge confidence in this market. I mean,
Sorry, I was just gonna say, like, I mean, like they're supposed to take over 6 large buildings, bring in 150 high-paying technical jobs by June of 2019. That's all real bullish.
Mm-hmm. I mean, 15 megawatts. That's nothing to sneeze at. That's a pretty sizable chunk of power, and the fact that they're literally approaching a government authority and trying to negotiate for the rates there. So like this isn't just, FOMO, we're running in and buying S9s, plug them in right now, mine. Like they're actually trying to, I can't imagine that they're approaching this in any other manner than a serious long-term plan with an actual budget and numbers to stick around for the long term.
Even the location too, right up there on the border with Canada, or like right up there, on the border with Canada, just staying cool up there, mining away. I mean, yeah, it's great to see some of these mining operations expand over here with like some long-term outlook on it, and that's it's awesome to see, really. Like hopefully we'll just see more of that.
Come on, Acnix. I know you got something to say.
Yeah, so if I'm getting that, that's 13,500 terahash, or just under 1,500 nines. That's a big farm. That's a really big farm.
Oh yeah, 6 buildings, 150 employees. Like it's a big farm.
And we're looking at when's the next halving? It's 2020. Is it like early 2020 or late 2020? I don't know.
I would roughly guess around summer. I mean, it's obviously going to be thrown off a little bit on top of the normal variability because of Bcash. But I would guesstimate around sometime in the middle of the year.
Yeah, I mean that just shows how confident they are in Bitcoin's price, right? Because with Lightning and everything else, I doubt that they're counting on fees being even higher than they have been, and that's already factored in with the amount of mining power that's been brought online, which has just been insane recently. So they've got to be thinking that the Bitcoin price is going to continue to grow in order for this to make sense. So that's hopefully not dumb money, probably not dumb money, right? This is not somebody buying a bunch of altcoins. This is somebody that's making a long-term investment and is probably well aware of those things. So yeah, good stuff.
I'm a bit confused about the terminology. If we're using mining and miners, then wouldn't it be a mine instead of a farm? Because we're not growing it. We're not really growing anything.
Stop pointing out Bitcoin terminology, Gene. Farm. It's a farm that mines. Farms mining.
It's a mining farm. It's even worse. It's a mining farm.
I mean, are we like replanting the rocks or something?
Oh man, jokes for days.
I mean, I guess if you're using, I guess if you have renewable energy, then maybe you could say it's a farm because you're like, there's a cycle to things, but.
Yeah. I think we're falling all over ourselves with our analogies at this point.
No, but that was funny. Right on. I've never, that's a funny joke. But what about these guys that are getting set up before 2020? That like just makes so much sense, and it is like you got to be seeing the long game on that. It's like we need to get this thing moving before that happening, where the block reward halves, and then we'll be set up, and at least we could mine and get, a good run before the halving, because those that set up you know, and it looks like their setup date's going to be somewhere in 2020. It could, I don't know. Yeah, it might be a run to build these farms before 2020.
Yeah, and they're obviously just betting that the price of Bitcoin more than doubles right before the halving happens, assuming that it's competitive right now.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like, an interesting dynamic I've always kind of assumed would really influence mining in the long term is when it comes to really big capital trying to get into the space. I mean, the entire like exchange landscape is just a game of musical chairs where they're constantly pulling chairs. Like people will buy, and some subsection of them will just remove that from supply and just hodl. And like that's a huge dynamic of the market. Like people hodl. They like it's not everybody just day trading to collect dollars at the end of the day. And when you see that kind of just progressively move further and further into the future and the supply continue drying up on these markets, like there really isn't a way for that big capital to get in besides OTC. And like that itself is eventually going to start going through the same dynamic where it's drying up and people just pull that to hodl. And in the long term, like big capital isn't going to really have any way unless big hodlers decide to liquidate a big chunk of their holdings besides mining. Like that's really the only consistently feasible way to take a large amount of capital and sink it into acquiring Bitcoins.
Well, I'm going to commit a major sin considering it's apparently Super Bowl Sunday, but I think we should turn a lot of the Super Bowl domes into mining farms.
Do it.
Because
sports
because
are
that
stupid.
because that would, you know, actually generate revenue compared to the cost of building the infrastructure. But whatever.
Do it. Sports are stupid. Sports are so stupid that I literally forgot the Super Bowl was today.
I know. I'm thinking like, was it today's the Super Bowl? Damn, I'm off.
The only reason I heard it was the Super Bowl is because someone said, you guys are crazy for thinking that Bitcoin is going to go down today on Super Bowl Sunday because people use Bitcoin for bets.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, everyone's drunk, distracted, and not paying attention. That's now's the time for market movements.
My favorite sports quote is Ludwig von Mises, who was like, you know, the guy before Murray Rothbard in economics. And he said, I just don't care about the fate of the ball. And it just sums up my opinion perfectly.
That's right.
Yeah, I like that too. I also like, I mean, the fact I did used to play sports, but I find the act of watching sports to be completely boring because it's like you know, I think everyone is aware of this caricature now of the guy who like basically spends most of his day sitting on his couch and he's like screaming at these football players whenever they make mistakes, and it's like, dude, you're sitting on a couch and you're yelling at a television screen. Which is kind of like how Bitcoin is sometimes. There are like all these people on the sidelines yelling at the developers, telling them to do stuff. And it's like, how about you try?
Yeah, but Bitcoin at least matters in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, it's not just an arbitrary, I beat you this time. Next time I'll beat you again.
Yeah, I'm convinced that it's state-sponsored propaganda. Just get everybody focused on the most inane, unimportant stuff and get them really passionate about who takes a knee or something just, you know, totally inane. I don't know they could do a better job than that.
Speaking of sports and yelling at people, I just want to point out that James Bond has now joined the troll box, and I'm extremely disappointed because apparently he's eating lunch right now. It's like he's really slacking off on his trolling.
What the hell, James? You've been a ghost lately. You show up. You don't troll us constantly. Like, that's your job, man. Like, do your job. Come on, man.
Oh, man.
All right. Speaking of rich fat cats sinking lots of money into Bitcoin mining, Messina isn't the only place. I forget exactly where, but there is already a large mining operation in Montana. And now CryptoWatt LLC has purchased 53 acres in 2 different cities in Montana and wants to open big mining farms. So here we go again. You know, it really comes down to, I think, in the long term, miners are just going to be the rich guys trying to get in. Like, this is again like 75 to $100 million to get data centers up and running. And I forget what was their projection for jobs created.
50 people.
50 engineers. And yeah, this is what I think is going to really keep mining decentralized in the long term and really keep it sustainable, because as these markets dry up and rich people really have no other option except to mine, like, it's going to be the wealthy people starting these mines. Like, some billionaire wants to sink a large amount of capital into Bitcoin. Well, if he's not lucky enough to have some for an OCT broker or somebody he knows who wants to let go of some coin, he's got to open up a mine. And there's a lot of millionaires and billionaires out there who I think are eventually going to, like, they're going to have no other option except sink something into Bitcoin, because in the long term, I mean, how else are you really going to protect your wealth if we really do see the world trend into hyper Bitcoinization? I mean, there's really no other options.
Well, I'm not surprised by this at all, because I think Montana has been in the news a number of times because the government itself has invested in mining. There's a couple of stories about that, how they apparently funded a local Bitcoins miner, or a local miner. But yeah, they've done a lot of that, and I'm not really surprised, because it's like all of these rural states who are experiencing a lot of depopulation, because, you know, people are it's very rural, and moving out of the state, so they probably are suffering from some tax revenue, even though they have a lot of other businesses coming into the area. So not surprised that they're trying to make up for some of that loss with mining.
It's funny you say that, because like in the article it talks about how this is like this power plant was built through government subsidies, and like eventually it's just like fell out of use because I guess they didn't need it, and now it's you know, went bankrupt and they sold it, and now it's being used for the mine. So yeah, it's like I don't know, that's kind of got like this dynamic, like we're saying, as far as just like if the people that really want money want to be in Bitcoin, you might want to start taking these kind of steps to, like, yeah, grab a power plant, build a mine, and just like that long-term proposition of like, that's the way that, you know, you're going to be able to accumulate coin. But yeah, that was just like a weird little part in the article where when you were talking about people leaving the state, I was just thinking about that. Like, it was a power plant built by the government, but it just fell out of use.
Yeah, and I believe that most of, like, especially the northwestern states have, as we showed in the graph, and I think the last show, that a lot of them have really low electricity prices. So I'm sure that they're taking advantage of that, compared to San Francisco, which is like twice the amount. But yeah, that's why, like, this is one of the reasons why I don't think that, you know, because people are scared about all this regulation that's going to come out of the US. And it's entirely possible that stuff might happen at the federal level, but, you know, from state to state, if you have states that are like literally directly investing in mining, like, that's any move to try and get the states to coordinate on regulation towards Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies, maybe ICOs, because that's more in the range of the SEC, but like any attempt to like get these states to coordinate on regulation against Bitcoin is going to be hard if you have a bunch of them, you know, controlling some of the hash power.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be the same kind of dynamic. You look at something like marijuana legalization. I mean, a bunch of states have done it. They've seen their tax revenue shoot through the roof. And yeah, I mean, I completely forget his name right now. I have really not paid attention to politics for the most part since Trump was elected. But the attorney general who keeps pushing for like pretty much dragging us back into the dark ages as far as like that issue goes. Like, good luck. Yeah, Sessions. He's not gonna succeed. Like, that's not gonna happen. Like, there is no way any state that is really seeing the positive social effects and the skyrocketing tax revenue for these things are just going to roll over and go, okay, we'll make it illegal again. Like, it's not happening. Like, the incentives are just completely misaligned to get back to that point.
Yeah, I mean, like, these things are making these states, more independent and being able to stand up on their own, and it's helping out in positive ways. Like, the population of Colorado put out a report saying that they had less overdoses this past year than the year before when it comes to the heroin epidemic here in the States. And, like, you can attribute some of that to the, cannabis for medicine here. And I mean, yeah, once people start setting up mining operations, and Montana is already a really independent state, like that, like you were saying, like they've already sort of invested in this, and their governor is kind of like a character as far as like just being like one of these guys that believes in like that Wild West pioneer, do it on your own type spirit. So yeah, I think as time goes on, we'll start to see these little micro economies become pretty powerful, and sort of saying like, we're not going to turn back over to what you want just because you're going to sell more pills, or you want us to use your dollars or whatever. So yeah, it's one of these things where the power dynamic and everything, and just the way the different regions of the US work, it's getting kind of crazy. We were discussing in the Mumble how it's just like the regions have different cultures that are so dynamically different where it just doesn't even really feel like a same country anymore. So like we're united through geographic location, but our ideas are very different right now. And where that's going to lead, I don't know, but it's something that's happening.
I mean, it's like, you're not that iron fist of the federal government. It's just not as effective as it used to be, and you can see that in so many different ways. I mean, just I try to walk delicately here, but just the ridiculous polarization on both sides, like partisanly, since Trump has been elected. Like, the way you have like a section of California, like, again, pushing for secession. Like Texas, that topic has been coming up somewhat semi regularly for a decade or so now. The big pipeline incident in Dakota, you actually had different counties completely ignoring their federal responsibility to come to the aid of other counties because they didn't agree with what was going on. Just that level of cohesion on the federal level, it's just not there anymore, and it keeps degrading. And like, like you said, Rick, there's no way everybody's just going to get on board with what the federal government says if they actually have a monetary incentive or an ideological reason to disagree with that.
Yeah, and I think as the internet and everybody's starting to talk more and more, we're starting to see these differences. And I mean, like, I just, I don't know, like this whole Puerto Rico thing just recently kind of shows like this nightmare where, it's like, one part of the region, the country gets in trouble, and it's like, well, it's all tied up in legislation as far as why your citizenry can't, provide for itself. And it's just like, well, if they had their own little independent economies, so maybe they could run through those situations. That's where, I don't know, it could be helpful in the long run, but
yeah, give those guys back all the taxes that they've paid, and I'm pretty sure they can set up a power plant.
Yeah, I mean, like, they've actually gotten some power lines back up and gotten power to like 2/3 of the island, but it's like all on their own, I mean, like, they're doing the help with people that are doing the help voluntarily. It's nothing really as far as funding coming from the system, as far as I know. It's those sort of things are the nightmares, to where it really kind of shows like, okay, are we in this together? Because I mean, like, I thought we were United States and all this stuff, and yeah, it really is kind of becoming divisive. But I don't know. This is just the way things are.
Yeah, I do think you're right. It's the internet access that we've had. It's hard for a lot of us to imagine what it was like for a generation before, when they actually trusted their government was telling them the truth. That, like, they watched the local news and they believed almost everything that they said. That's just unfathomable at this point.
Yeah, the crazy thing about Puerto Rico is, I think, because I can't remember the name of the act, it might be the Jones Act. I don't know if I'm remembering it correctly, but there's an act, a federal act that says that any ships carrying like goods to Puerto Rico, they have to first land on the mainland US. So usually that's Florida, because obviously that's the closest point. So any ships, I don't know if this also applies to humanitarian aid, but I wouldn't be surprised, because I think it's not just for business, it's just sea transport in general. But any ships that go to Puerto Rico have to land at Florida first. They have to take all of the goods off of the ships to get it cleared through customs, and then they have to put it back on the ship and then bring it to Puerto Rico. It's like so ridiculous. It wastes so much time, and I wouldn't be surprised if that had a factor in Puerto Rico not getting supplies that they needed and power back up sooner.
Right. I mean, everything's humanitarian aid, right? Like food, clothing, anything that humans want to buy, right? Whether there's a disaster today or there might be one in 3 years, is humanitarian aid. And if we're taxing those guys and we're imposing tariffs on them and we're preventing them from being able to trade freely with us and with other people, we're basically enforcing economic warfare on the poorest people in the world, which is what we do with Africa, right? We've got an agreement with Europe that we'll never buy any agricultural products from Africa, so we'll just keep those guys completely starved as well. We don't need to send those guys money. Maybe we could just stop making their children starve to death. That might be a nice first step.
Yeah, it's just like awful when it's like the desperation level is like evident. Like these people need this, and like so this thing, like this momentary stop to make sure everybody's following these trade agreements and everything before the supplies get there, is where it's just like, okay, like, what is the point of governance? Are we like trying to help the people, or are we trying to help the system? And like, what does that mean? And how is that like hurting us? That's where it's just like it really, yeah, that's where it's like, if we don't help take care of one another, then it's like definitely just more divisive. I don't know. And those are such big problems that I don't really like to think too much on them, because it's like one of those things where you can't really do anything about it other than just sort of be aware that it's there.
Buy Bitcoin.
There you go.
I think a lot of this has to do with living in the moment, and a lot of people don't see that bigger picture until they're actually complicit in it, and at which point they're complicit in shit that they think is horrible, so they don't want to talk about it, they don't want to be involved until after it comes out. Then it's acceptable again once to talk. Oh, they see the bigger picture, right? And then they see people talking about it, then they talk about it. So I feel like a lot of this is that type of response reaction.
Yeah, it's keep it hush hush until somebody else took the first step.
Yeah, it's a crazy situation we're in.
Mm-hmm. So I guess next story, guys.
That's good.
All right. UPS is about to do something that I can't really reconcile with my layman's understanding of the types of regulations and stuff out there. They applied for a patent for an automated locker to facilitate things like internet commerce. And if you guys actually want to dig through the patent piece by piece and see how it actually works, that's also in the show notes. But I think we're just going to kind of keep it higher level. But it's effectively just a locker bank where you would have a method of payment such as, cash, credit card, Google, Apple Pay, PayPal, and explicit, oops, there goes something off the desk. explicitly mentioned is Bitcoin. But the gist of the design is you would just have like a locker. A merchant who had sold something would go through a registration process, deposit the good in the locker, and then the customer would be able to just come along and pick it up and pay for it at their discretion. And so this, like, I kind of have a little bit of a hard time reconciling how, like, regardless of how the patent application goes, like, this would be rolled out in reality. Because, I mean, just think about it. Like, when you had something like Alphabet or Silk Road, like the entire way that was set up is you just have the marketplace, you go on, purchase your goods, and actually have to encrypt your home address and have it directly sent to your home. While a technology like this takes kind of illegal or gray marketplaces like that, and I see a big opportunity for those to make a comeback. I mean, now you can just have something delivered to a locker bank like this. Go pick it up. I mean, depending on how the actual like process works in terms of identifying anybody involved, like there's fake IDs, like there's things you can do to obscure your identity, and you can kind of limit that risk in selling illegal products. So like this is, I don't really know how to feel about this. Is like potentially a good thing in that it removes a lot of friction to like potential businesses, and it makes it a little more convenient. But at the same time, you're opening up a lot of these potential issues. Like, well, what happens when people go and use something like this for something illegal or something destructive? Like, how do you actually apply the same kind of checks that are applied like in the current postal system with something like this?
Yeah, I mean, the current checks are pretty stupid, right? You're not allowed as a U.S. citizen to have a mailbox that's anonymous. So if I wanted you to send something to me, I'd have to give you my real identity. And if I get a like a UPS box or a PO box or the mailboxes.com or whatever, I have to provide proof of my identity and they have to verify it. And you can use, obviously you could use a fake ID for something like that, but then you get into really, really hardcore punishment for, I guess, mail fraud and things like that. Even if all you're trying to do is just get a package from somebody, you want to buy somebody's T-shirt, but you don't want them to know your name and address. That's completely impossible right now because of these regulations, without risking some like serious prison time. But on the other hand, I mean, if you're a criminal and you're moving, 3 pounds of cocaine, who cares, right? So then you just create a fake ID and you go ahead and do that because it doesn't really matter. So it really only affects people that are concerned about their privacy. It doesn't affect really hardcore criminals. And I imagine that this would be a similar system where you'd have to provide maybe ID when you register to be a user of the system, and then you can go pick things up. That would kind of be on par. But the thing that hit me with this is another application where without Lightning on Bitcoin, you just can't do this, right? You're not going to go show up, pay for a product, and then hang out for 3 or 4 confirmations, right? So now for the first time, we have the technology in place where you could pop open your phone, hit a button, locker opens, boom, you grab your stuff from Amazon or whatever, and you're on your way. So I think I don't know. Ultimately, it just made me think of how awesome Lightning is and all the different applications that open up.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to see how exactly this thing works. I didn't, I was waiting to hear what y'all were going to say on the technical details of it because it's like I wasn't really catching it. But yeah, I mean, it's great to see a big company like UPS and all them. I don't know, like we were talking like late last year about Amazon every other week, and UPS and Amazon work closely together. Like I don't know, it's just like to me like it's a good sign But I didn't know that much about the technical details of it. But if it's something that could be helpful, then that's just even better.
Well, it's mostly using like in the language in the actual patent is pretty much always prefaced with may. But in terms of identifying the users is talking about government ID cards and biometric scans. But the thing I like, my issue there is like, you know, you can fake government IDs. Like that's not really that difficult in this day and age. And as far as biometric scans, well, like, what are you talking about? Like, are you talking about a facial scan? I can just hold a picture up to the camera. I mean, when we've seen how easy it is for all the smartphones lately using facial unlocking, you just hold a picture up to the thing and unlocks. Like, you know, there's like, how do you actually enforce that or design that in a way where it's not trivially like tricked?
I'm just waiting for like onion routed mailing where, you know, each of the hops doesn't, you basically get instructions, or the people that are responsible for shipping it stuff to you get instructions that they have to send package to this hop, and they don't know what the next hop is. But then you know,
just blew my mind.
That's such a great idea.
Yeah, you got a package.
I
Like
don't know why they haven't done that already. It just seems like I don't know how people don't consider their address to be like a hugely revealing piece of information that they don't want to give out to every single retailer that they buy stuff from. Like, how have you guys not done this yet?
Well, I mean, the answer is lots of prison time, right? If anybody signs up to provide that service to take a package and send a package, they're looking at spending a lot of time with Bubba, and there's not enough money in it. So I think that's why. But yeah, it's a really good idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that needs to be written down somewhere, Janine, and then fleshed out. My brain is already thinking about condensing like different addresses encrypted to different keys to follow the routes along that. I
mean, I don't know. I'm not an expert in shipping business, but that's just something I've always wanted is onion routed mailing.
I used to work in the post office 20 years.
Just trying to think of how you know you got to your final recipient.
Well, you'd have to have some degree of trust there, but I mean, you still like obscure that information from the actual sender. You know what I mean? So that's still a huge improvement. But yeah, you
guys are making my brain hurt this early morning.
Okay, Janine, you have to take over for this Tor thing now because my brain is going to obsess over this idea probably for the rest of the day.
Yeah, I was hoping this story would be the next one because it's like, oh, UPS and shipping and.
Do you want me to start with the white paper or the tweet?
Probably the white paper. Because I mean, I read through it. I skimmed it. Because the main reason that it caught my attention was because Nick Carter tweeted one of the graphs in it about what people are spending it on. But basically, the summary of the paper is that, you know, because Bitcoin is not, it's pseudo-anonymous, it's not anonymous. The fact that, you know, Tor users have been using Bitcoin for years, there is some potential for, you know, if you can correlate Bitcoin addresses and payments, then you can probably figure out it kind of, you know, helps with de-anonymizing specifically Tor hidden services because, you know, any addresses that are connected to each other, anywhere that Bitcoin goes, it's probably, you know, especially if you've been using similar addresses for years that are connected to each other, that's going to create a problem. Apparently, one of the ways that a lot of Tor users were de-anonymized is that for some reason, you know, they were using the same addresses that they would post on their public social media profiles with their names or their handles that they were using on the Silk Road years ago. That seems like something you would think to not do. But if you could scroll down to the chart, since we were talking about, you know, whether, you know, such and such system would be used for illegal purposes, Tor is always being accused of being used for legal. I think it's on page 8. Yeah. So I thought this graph was funny. It was what Nick Carter tweeted. And it's basically showing what Bitcoin users on Tor hidden services were actually using with their Bitcoin. And you have the classic Silk Road on there, Dark Wallet, not surprising, Darknet Mixer, Onion Mail. But then you have weird ones like Libertarian Nuts and OpenStreetMap donations, Snowden Defense Fund, Internet Archive, WikiLeaks, like a lot of donation things, like really pretty innocuous. And like WikiLeaks, I think, is the biggest one on there with 25,000 transactions. The next one is a Darknet Mixer, which really, I mean, that's not necessarily illegal using a mixer. But yeah, a lot of pretty high amounts. Like I think the next one up is Internet Archive, 2,500 transactions. Snow Defense Fund, 1,600. Like most of them are pretty weird. I think the weirdest one of all is OpenStreetMap donations. That was one I did not expect to be on there for what Tor hidden service users would be using with their Bitcoin. So I thought this chart was kind of funny because there's we read that study out of the UK a few episodes ago about how they found that like less than 1% of transactions were being used for illicit uses or purposes or services. And this just shows like, you have stuff like ransomware in there, which is, I think, pretty unambiguously negative, but a lot of, really normal things that people do, because when, people get money, most of them use it for pretty normal things like everyone else.
Mm-hmm. And I think this tweet is perfect. It's this attack is possible. Blah 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 because people are idiots.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to be making correlation that obvious to post your, Silk Road address on Twitter. That would be bad.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, it's some real amateur stuff, dude. Fucking amateurs. All right. Well, next up. Dun dun dun. I'm sure everybody remembers the $500 million NEM hack from Coincheck in Japan. Well, the Japanese Financial Services Agency initially just gave them kind of a slap on the wrist and were like, okay, you're saying you're going to refund people. It's not really a big deal. Apparently, they changed their mind. 2 days ago, the exchange was raided, surprise raid by the FSA. And they wanted to make sure that they actually had the money to refund users for the hack, because even though it's being refunded in yen, that's $500 million. And like we were saying earlier, Japan is probably one of the most established regulatory frameworks as far as Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies go. They actually have a licensing scheme for the exchanges. And yeah, I do believe, make sure I'm correct, I don't think that Coincheck actually had their license finalized yet at the time, or had just recently done so. But yeah, this is kind of a big issue here. Like, it's $500 million missing, and even though they initially just slapped them on the wrist, like, no, wait, that's $500 million. Do they even have that money? Like, are they just bullshitting everybody? We actually have to go see what's going on here. And you're not going to be able to have any kind of centralized exchange that isn't like subject to these kinds of checks or regulations. And they really, like, the exchange ecosystem really needs to get its shit together. And like, that's not even necessarily a call for regulation on the scale that Japan is looking at right now, but just in general. I mean, I know we talked sometime in the past weeks about the wallet DAT files being found on AWS instances after the Spectre and Meltdown vulnerabilities were leaked. And it's just, there's a lot of real amateur shit, like them not taking security properly, them not managing their risk properly, like just the huge gray area in a lot of cases as far as regulations. Like, are they going to come? What are they going to look like? Like, how are we going to comply with this? And it really is just Wild West, like kind of everybody's putzing around figuring shit out as they go. And that's not really a tenable thing in the long term. And I guess JW's got a tinfoil theory. Putting my tinfoil on. Hit us.
Yeah, putting on the tinfoil hat. So if you had a business that had $1 billion in profits, right? If you did really, really well, and you wanted to take that money and distribute it to all the owners of the business, and you didn't want to do anything dirty necessarily, you just want to take the money that you've earned and give it to the people that have been investing and running the business that have earned that money. You're going to have to give maybe 60% of it to the local mafia, right, in the process, because you're going to pay income tax at the corporate level, then you're going to pay payroll taxes at the individual level, and then you're going to pay income tax at the individual level. So you're just going to get sliced and diced. So maybe you take $1 billion, and by the time it gets into the hands of the owners, the legitimate owners of those assets, it's now down to 400 million, right, or 350 million. But if you get hacked and all that money gets lost, even if it went into the hands of the people that owned it, you've just saved yourself $650 million in taxes, because you can write off that entire loss 100%. So I think it's going to get kind of interesting. It's going to be really hard to tax businesses when they have access to untraceable electronic cash. So I don't know if that sort of stuff is happening here or if it's happened up to this point, but there's a whole lot of motivation there.
Yeah, like I think that's kind of like you know, whenever I saw this, and like we're saying, it's like Japan's like one of these countries that's really like going all out. You know, like Bitcoin can be accepted as a currency, and like they're trying to allow their citizens to use it. Like whenever you have that sort of like thing, and you're trying to figure out a way to corral it and make sure that everything's done above board, and something happens like that, I guess, you know, yeah, the slap on the wrist move wasn't enough, and like I can understand them, you know, sending people down there to make sure that this sort of thing's there and it's cleared up, because yeah, like you're saying, if somebody's not watching that, it's like yeah, you can, you know, do some easy moves to write off a big, you know, tax check that you're supposed to cut or something.
Yeah, I mean, my thought is that they're not primarily concerned about the customers that lost money. They're concerned about the fact that they're not getting their slice of that action, and they want to.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
sorry, I was just gonna say that, yeah, like I'm just thinking that, yeah, I mean, if their citizens are using it and that big a deal happened, I don't know, it looks pretty bad, I think, to the people that are invested, you know, and you say like, oh, it's all good, we just slapped them on the wrist. They got to do a little something extra, I think.
I mean, it's definitely something that makes sense to me in the abstract, JW, but I mean, like, why wouldn't they have gone after the Bitcoin or like the like Ether, like something besides this random NEM coin that I refuse to learn anything about? Like, why Ripple? Like, you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, no, you're right. It's not. It's like I have a hard time, because when we're talking about losses and stuff, I'm not thinking about just total bullshit to start with. Like, these shit coins just totally fry my brain.
yeah, I mean, but you know, that's definitely something I could see happening at some point if it hasn't already happened, though. I mean, that's like, if you can walk away with a crypto that is going to have some kind of long-term value proposition, like, yeah, you might just do that, toss it aside for a while, and just wait until you can handle the issue of actually moving it or tumbling it or whatever you have to do to actually make it usable at some point. Like,
Yeah, I mean, maybe they just don't know how stupid it is, right? Maybe they just they stole $500 million worth of something that's just so worthless and dumb. And when they try to actually put any of it on the market, they'll go, "Oh crap! Like I didn't realize how few buyers there actually are. I trusted CoinMarketCap to tell me how much this was worth, and now I screwed up."
Yeah, I mean, I might feel like more sad or sympathetic or something about the fact that people got their money stolen if I knew what the hell this NEM thing even was. Like I don't know. Like what is it?
I refuse to find out unless it at least shows up in the top 10 list, because then at least I can limit the amount of suffering I have to go through to figure out what these things are.
I think I actually know a little bit about that because they held a conference here in Aspen. I think that was that NIM, that Nexus. I think that's what NIM is. It's like some, yeah,
Oh,
I don't
it's
know
NIM?
anything other than that. Like, I think it's Nexus something.
I take it back. It is in the top 10 list, and I did do a review of it. That's how much it affected me.
I refuse. I'm not ashamed to say I'm gonna do a Kraus switch here. I'm remaining ignorant intentionally.
Let me read you
Logo
just like
looks
3
stupid.
sentences. You'll know everything you need to know about NEM. It's basically a database with digital signatures on transactions. So that capability has been built into databases like Microsoft SQL Server for over a decade. So it just uses the excitement around the term blockchain, and it doesn't actually have a blockchain. So
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Oh, it doesn't have a blockchain because when I search NEM token, I get NEM, distributed ledger technology, and then blockchain in parentheses. So is it a blockchain or not?
Yeah, well, they got to say that it's a blockchain, but it doesn't. It's just applying digital signatures per transaction in the database. So it's not like finding blocks. There's not like mining or any of that sort of stuff. But if you want to call a string of transactions that are digitally signed a blockchain, I guess you could, but it would be pretty deceptive.
Logo, it literally looks like someone took the Microsoft logo and like twisted it in a smoothie cup or something. It's like the same colors. Here, I'll send you the link to the website. It's really funny. It's like when you go to it, it's like this graphic of you flying through the clouds, the smartest asset blockchain.
We're triggering someone's over. They're like, now they're ripping on my logo. Damn it.
Well, it does. I mean, when I looked at it, it's like I can tell they got inspiration from Microsoft because it's like the same triad of colors. It's like, look at that, flying through the clouds. You want to be in the blockchain? It's in the clouds.
It's got a $9 billion market cap. And I mean, just looking at the website, they didn't even spend, $250 on this thing.
I'll give it to them. They had a conference here in Aspen where Ron Paul showed up. And it was like Ron Paul and like a couple other, names. I know Eric Voorhees was like hosting it, I think. Yeah, there's some big names in it. That's probably why that I was looking at the chart. It went up pretty high at the end of last year. I think that was about the time of that conference.
NEM's permissioned private blockchain delivers industry-leading transaction rates for internal ledgers. What? Oh, goody! You get to send transactions like a few microseconds faster. Good job.
This is
revolutionary
all
consensus mechanism.
This is all the bullshit check mark. Speed and performance and scale. Just buzzword. Fancy graphic. Where's the actual explanation? There's not any kind of technological breakdown of anything new. It's just buzzwords. This speed, scale.
I was wondering where the moving graphics were. That's it. It's the clouds, huh? They're moving at you.
The NEM Smart Asset System allows you to totally customize how you use the NEM blockchain. First, your namespace defines your home on the blockchain, where you can name your own mosaics, provide easy to remember. What? Okay.
Don't you know what a mosaic is? You can name your own mosaic.
Shitty.
I think it's.
web
I think
browser.
mosaic is where it's like it makes the addresses easier to remember. I think that's what it stands for, but I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't even know. It's so stupid. I mean, it's a database for people that trust each other. We don't need proof of work for that, and it doesn't have proof of work, so it's obviously pointless.
I love how
That's
one
good for a
that
hack.
a little like halfway down their website says this may either be the open, decentralized, self-supporting NEM public blockchain, or it may be a permissioned private NEM blockchain running on your own servers. It's like, good job, guys. You chose the second one, didn't you?
Ah, boy. Ah, boy.
Who are their development partners? Oh, not there. They all disappeared.
Ah,
Literally, there's
shit
a section.
coins.
Few are partner companies.
Go away, shit coins. Go away.
Oh, here we go. They're still there. Never heard of any of them.
Somehow it was worth nearly $500 million or something, or them with the Ripple.
$9 billion. I think an aircraft carrier, if I remember right, is like $4 or $5 billion. So you could have like 2 aircraft carriers, like fully
How
laid
does that
out.
make any sense?
You can have a military or a database. Make your choice.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you could buy a couple small African nations for $9 billion. But you know, if you just throw together a database with digital signatures and you throw a blockchain on it and somehow trick poor Ron Paul into speaking at your conference, you're good to go.
$9 billion. Jeez.
Yeah. All right. Well, we ready for the next one? We got 2 more stories left.
Sounds good.
All right. The World Gold Council says Bitcoin could undermine central banks. So
I was not even aware of the existence of a World Gold Council.
Dang it, Janine! I was gonna say that.
I mean, if Krugman was a gold bug, like that sounds like something he would show up to.
Well, this whole report is really kind of, I don't know. And in some parts, it is doing kind of a reasoned analysis of things, but in other parts, it's just the funniest shit in the world. Like, it's pretty much for the first bit here, it's kind of comparing the volatility, the liquidity in the markets, the lack of regulatory framework for things like Bitcoin, and just kind of how it's still trying to fit itself into, like, what is this used for? Like, everybody has a different use for it, and how, like, all of those things are kind of fleshed out with gold. Like, and it even goes on to, like, say before Bretton Woods was pretty much just thrown out the window, like, gold's value kind of tracked the inflation rate and then started moving to around 10% a year on average, minus the big spike in the 70s. But then we go down to gold's demand, I believe is the section it was in. And I kind of just brushed through this really quickly. I don't remember exactly where it was, but they have a comparison.
I see a part. There's a part in the demand is diverse in the bottom of the first paragraph that says gold is a tangible good with real technical applications. Gold is even used in the computer chips to mine Bitcoin. I think they're upset about the fact that we've taken mining as a verb. I think we need to give it back. I think we just should go to farming and say that we grow Bitcoin on farms.
But
see, this is the real battle. It's not between whether crypto means cryptography or cryptocurrency. It's between whether mining is for gold or Bitcoin.
We're taking them both. It's mining and it's farming. You guys don't do anything.
Here it is. They make the statement that most cryptocurrencies volume is driven by buy and hold investors. And then down here, they go on to talk about how big jewelry is factoring into the demand for gold. As if buying gold jewelry is not almost an exact equivalent to buy and hodl. People buy gold jewelry, and what do they do with it? They keep it until they're in a position where they need to liquidate it for other things. They buy it, and they hodl it. Like they try to point that dynamic out in the cryptocurrency markets as if it's like some kind of flaw or negative, and then go on to say that one of the biggest parts of gold demand is pretty much that exact same thing.
Yeah, it says typically representing between 50 and 60%. That seems like a relatively analogous comparison to number of hodlers in Bitcoin.
Yeah. So it's, you know, like I suggest you read through it. It's only like 4 pages, but pretty much the gist of the argument is like the liquidity, which is a fair argument, the like defined role as far as something in an investment portfolio, and I can give them that, and the regulation, which I don't really agree with, but from their mentality and point of view, I can see why they see that as a positive. But it just breaks down when they try to just go, crypto only goes up because people hodl it. Well, why do you think gold goes up?
Like one of the classic representations of hoarding. It's like the dragon with his gold. Seems like pretty popular symbol. I wonder where that came from. I think it's funny that they think that gold being regulated is a good thing, because it's not like, you know, one of the greatest catastrophes with gold being used to back currencies was the government coming in and saying, we're taking all of your gold, which recently happened in India, but, you know, whatever, regulation. I guess that's a positive. I don't really get it.
Yeah, what they mean by regulation is the ease with which the government can steal it from its citizens. It's really important that that be a highly easy thing to do. And with Bitcoin, it's not very easy. It's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't know. Every time I see the gold versus Bitcoin argument, it does, like, I don't know. I just think that, yeah, Bitcoin's, I like the gold 2.0, you know, it's just got more, it's got better qualities and everything. And yeah, who is the gold council anyway? And all of this. But yeah, they definitely need to start factoring in a lot more than just like a couple things about the price or something about the ecosystem. That's what, I don't know, that Paul Krugman tweet storm he did. It's just like they all like to just point to one thing or this example or whatever. It's like, all right, it's a myriad, but you know, they'll get it one day, either on the right side or the wrong side.
Yeah, the moment that they realize that, oh, you could own this thing and you don't have to trust that somebody has it in the vault, because nobody that owns gold drives down to the vault and checks. And even if you did, you wouldn't be able to tell, you know, whether it was your gold or not. And what are you going to do? You're going to drill it every time you want to test it, right? You're going to grab those bricks off the shelf. They're going to have serial numbers that are your serial numbers. They're going to melt them down, right? Because that's the only way to make sure that you're actually testing for gold content. And then you're going to test them, and then you're going to put them, you know, you're going to pour them back into bricks, and then you're going to put them on the shelf. And then you're going to leave, and then you're going to hope nobody steals them. Like there's some major security issues with gold that's solved with Bitcoin. And, you know, once that clicks, they won't have so much to say.
Wait, JW, are you saying that you don't take your most cherished family heirlooms to, you know, some place to melt, and you like melt it down every month just to make sure that it's real, that someone didn't like switch it out?
I do an annual audit. We just start from scratch. It's one big pile of gold, and then it, you know, we work it back to our you know. The other thing that's so funny about this is the popularity of gold, right? It's like Mr. T was a few decades ago, right? I have not worn a gold chain since I was a really little kid. You know, I know it's big in India, but I'm assuming that the fashion trend is going to continue, and we're going to be more interested in iPhones and I don't know, iWatches than a big hunk of yellow metal that's particularly heavy that we want to drag around and show off. So I think they must realize they're hurting on multiple levels at this point.
Yeah, if they don't see it, it's bad. It's coming.
What I do find funny is that when I was in the UK, you would always get these ads for some reason of this American guy who was selling gold bars and British sterling that was like tax free, and it's like, why like it's like if gold is at a point where the government is selling it to people tax free and it's being sold by an American guy in an advertisement, like something's going on. Something is wrong here.
Yeah, and I mean, there's like two dynamics too with gold that I think it's kind of telling they didn't touch on them. And like one is you see like a lot of gold holders are like big investors that hold it on a generational timescale. And I mean, when you look at things culturally, at least in the West, like it's generally older people that have big holdings of gold. But when they pass and like that moves on to their descendants, it's very probably going to be liquidated. And if you look at things with the way that we're passing through generations right now and the rate at which one is moving on, the next is taking its place, there is the potential for just a huge impending liquidation of any gold that your family members are holding that they may leave to you. And that's a big factor in the market when you look at things at a macro scale. And two, unlike Bitcoin, when the price of gold goes up, that can bring more supply on the market, because when the price goes up, it's now going to be cost effective to mine gold in places where it wasn't before. With Bitcoin, the price can go up to infinity. It's not going to bring any new Bitcoin onto the market. The supply is fixed. The mining difficulty is dynamic. And that rate brought into circulation, or it's never going to change. Whereas with gold, like the price going up, well, hey, it goes up and up and up. And then this new mine comes online because it's profitable right now and floods the market with gold. And now that price isn't going up so fast. And the entire dynamic of supply is wildly different and nowhere near as secured in its scarcity as Bitcoin.
Right,
Yeah,
like,
but Shinobi, the Bitcoin price is obviously being manipulated. Oh wait, wasn't there just a headline about a guy getting arrested for manipulating the gold market? Oops.
What? You don't say.
yeah,
Surprise.
I remember these gold bugs. They just like on that, this other point about gold and like its supply. It's like I remember when they started talking about mining asteroids and like the possibilities of going and grabbing a bunch of gold and bringing it back. Like the gold bugs, like that's gonna destroy the value. Like it's got to remain, it's got to remain scarce and difficult to get and all that stuff. So yeah, it's like really like there's an abundance of gold out there in the universe, and if we become proficient at getting around it, then it's really lost its species.
All these people saying like, oh, you can't, Bitcoin isn't worth anything because you can't really spend it anywhere. Well, there was literally someone did a piece about how they went around with like, I think it was an ounce of gold, and they were going to like Subway or whatever and saying, I want to pay with my sandwich. Here's an ounce of gold, or the value of the sandwich in dollars, like $5 sub, and like pretty much I don't think a single person took the gold bar, even though the gold bar was obviously worth a lot more. So yeah, you have that problem that, I mean, I like gold. I would rather hold gold than any of the fiat currencies out there. I'd rather have gold, but that would definitely be a store of value thing. It wouldn't be something I would spend. Although, funnily enough, if you go to Room 77 in Berlin, they have it on their menu that they take silver and gold, which is very funny. So if you're a gold bug and you want to spend your gold, you should come to Room 77 because they'll accept it.
See, I think that's kind of funny because like I believe if you went one step removed and you tried to ask people in line or near the business to exchange gold at a discount or at face value for currency and then to buy your item, right? Explain the whole transaction or whatever, versus Bitcoin, how that would work and which one would have a deeper discount before you got a taker, or if you have to discount it at all.
The big problem with gold is you can't, I mean, if somebody walked up to me on the street and said, hey, I want to sell you an ounce of gold. I mean, yeah, go ahead, Rick. I think you were going to say it.
No, like that's like I was watching that video and it's like, yeah, it's like it's a risk. You know, you walk out and you say, "Hey, I've got some gold. You know, like I'll trade you." And you know that wrong person says, "Oh, you got some gold. All right, knock you out. Take the gold, walk off." You know.
Well, yeah, and how the hell do I know if that's gold or not, right? Like, oh, let me grab my acid etching gear that I just happen to have in the car, and I'll just grind on the edge of this thing and pour some acid on it and watch. You know, come on, like, yes, dude, sell me some Bitcoin. That's fine. You need $5? Sell me $5 in Bitcoin. Once I get it, I know that I've got it. Here's your money. It's all verified. It's authentic, and I didn't have to carry a freaking kit of chemicals around with me just in case somebody wanted to sell me some gold.
Yeah, but I mean, what's the average guy on the street do? You know, that's what I want to see. Like, what's a good sample selection of people do when presented with these options? I mean, some people probably be pretty keen on saying, I can identify gold and I want some gold, and you know, I'll take a little nugget for an exchange. I got 100, 200 on me. You know, like I'm talking about some value like that in Bitcoin, and in, like they want to buy a pair of sneakers or something. You know, in New York City, for example. I just think that'd be entertaining.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, $50 of gold is really small too, so that brings up another valuable part of Bitcoin that's divisible, way better than gold.
I'm going to do a total tangent. We're going on a tangent right now. Okay. All right. Booger's guy in the chat says he has Bitcoin teeth. And I just had an epiphany. We're going to put gold and Dentacoin out of business at once. Open dime teeth.
that needs to be photoshopped. So right. You know, you can actually make that. You can make a grill, right? Just an open dime sideways all the way across.
Call it open dentures. Open dentures. Get it, venture. It's like venture capital.
I've got something to work.
Yeah, who's the rapper that was just talking about how he made a bunch of money on Bitcoin? That is like, that's ready made.
50 Cent.
It's great.
Perfect. Doesn't he have a grill? He needs a grill. He needs an open dime grill.
Just think about it. How much cheaper dental implants will be. It's just a little piece of circuit board. You don't gotta pay for gold. You don't gotta pay for all the other fancy stuff. Just pop it on in there.
After hyper Bitcoinization, you just smile at the wrong person. They're gonna rip your skull off.
Oh my god. Well, I was just thinking two Nickelback, because there's always that joke about how much would 50 Cent have if they something got their Nickelback. I don't remember the joke, but I was just thinking two Nickelbacks are worth an open dime.
Oh no, Nickelback. I can't make it.
All right, guys. Are we ready? Ready for the last story?
All right.
Dun, dun, dun. Uh-oh. Bad news for Tether. Bittrex looking into USD deposits. Uh-oh. So apparently, dive a little deeper into this, something I did not know. Bittrex actually has their back end set up in a way where other exchanges can kind of plug in and utilize their liquidity. And that's actually something that the Korean exchange Upbit uses. And, you know, I've heard before that they actually, or Bittrex, they actually do accept USD deposits up to certain amounts for what I imagine is or big customers like other exchanges plugging into their back end. But they are specifically looking into ditching USDT pairs and taking USD deposits directly. So, when Polo. To repurpose that phrase a little bit. No thoughts?
I try to stay away from all this Tether stuff, but you know, it's understandable. No, it's not. It's like, it's not FUD, but it's like I can understand them like doing that. It's like they need to sort of protect themselves if there is something wrong going on over there. And I know that I don't know the full story over there enough to say whether or not it's good or not. So, like as far as like them doing it, it's understandable, right? Like to just try and shield themselves from something that might happen.
Well, I mean, this could very wildly change the dynamic of the entire market if you have all of the shit coins directly trading against USD pairs. Because right now, your only option is pretty much either Tether or Bitcoin. And that's a big part of the reason why Bitcoin is so dominant in this space. It's literally the reserve currency that all these other assets trade against. And I don't think this would mean Tether disappears because it's still like an arbitrage tool. Like you're still always going to be able to take USDT and move that faster to other exchanges to pull an arbitrage when you have to move fiat to handle that end of that. But this could lead to a bit of a decoupling here of all these shit coins to the Bitcoin price. And I think that's like, I don't really know how I feel about that. And I also don't know like really how that would play out. Like, is that like, you know what I mean? Like, what's the end result of that going to be? Is them rallying independent of Bitcoin, or is it just going to be easier access for people who are trading to get US dollars at the end of the day to just dump right into dollars without having to worry about the extra variable of Bitcoin and the liquidity and slippage involved in that?
I just can't believe that it's going on this long, that Tether has existed for this long of a period of time. I mean, it's clearly banking, right? It's full reserve banking, right? Is what they're saying. Like every dollar that you're holding in our bank, here is a note, and if you move this note around between each other and then come back to our bank, we'll give you an actual US dollar for it. How in the world they've been able to do that for so long is completely staggering to me. But I got to think it's going to end at some point. And maybe they're starting to lay the groundwork for that. The regulators showed up and said, "Oh, yeah, this is called banking, right? You're not allowed to do this." Would be my guess, but I'm totally speculating. But because like I said, I can't believe that it went on this long. So maybe I am missing something.
Yeah, I don't think that the pairs necessarily have anything to do with. I don't think like unpairing altcoins from Bitcoin is necessarily going to mean that altcoins like we'll see the market like when Bitcoin goes up or down, the altcoins don't generally all follow in the same direction, because I think most of that is psychological. Like Bitcoin is, because it's so dominant, like if Bitcoin goes down, Bitcoin kind of reflects an overall confidence in the cryptocurrency ecosystem in general. And so if Bitcoin goes down, then most people, it's confidence in everything, so everything gets affected. So I don't know if the exchange pairs necessarily have that big of an impact on that.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like it's still going to alter like some dynamic in the market, because when you really look at the exchanges that have direct USD access, like the number of altcoins on them isn't really that extensive. Like when it comes to like really like the shit coins, so to say, like it's pretty much just Polo and Bittrex. And I mean, to really see an independent USD pair for a lot of these shit coins that doesn't have the counterparty risk of Tether, like that's like I can't see that not having some kind of effect on the markets in the long term. I mean, that you're no longer limited to having to trust Tether or moving through Bitcoin. You know what I mean?
I'm kind of curious as to like, I mean, like I imagine there would be a dynamic there that I'm not entirely thinking of it. I'm just thinking like these pairings, you know, like they don't really get listed across all exchanges like that. Like wondering if like maybe they would do their own sort of like Tether and then use it for their exchange, and like other exchanges would follow suit and do their own sort of Tether. I don't know. I'm just starting to try and think about it as far as like trying to flesh out the idea.
It's totally logical, and that's how banking used to work in the United States before the federal government made that illegal. We had all kinds of different competing banks, and if somebody gave you a note that represented money in Bank A, you decided how much you trusted Bank A, and if it was a good, reputable bank, you would accept it. And that had a really positive effect because the banks, as competing, didn't want to lend out too much money. They never wanted to have a bank run or have anybody think that there might be a bank run, because that would cause a lack of confidence in their asset, and they would have a bank run. So there was a lot of, if you wanted to be a bank and stay in business for any period of time, you had to be pretty dang conservative. And that's what would happen now if it wasn't illegal to open up a bank. Like, you cannot do this in the United States, and you cannot do this and offer this service to customers. If you wanted to open up a bank and say, you give me your money and I'll give it back to you, and I'm not even going to invest it, that would be illegal. That's called the demand deposit, and you go to federal prison for that. So I don't understand how Tether has gotten away with this, but yeah, I mean, that would be a very natural market solution that we would see if it wasn't so much of a threat to really shady banks, right? Because if the U.S. allows a legitimate bank to operate, nobody's going to want to put their money in Chase or Bank of America, because that is, really the problem. So the irony is Tether is probably so much more backed than the dollars in your Chase bank account that it can't be allowed to operate. So I don't know how it is operating.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, I don't know, you kind of have some hopes that there's some people on the inside trying to make some big changes there and trying to figure out how to implement that way that's not too damaging.
Yeah, but I mean, it's whatever it does, it's going to cause some kind of change.
Well, I wonder if Jeff Garzik has changed his plans to create a Tether with United Bitcoin, because that, when I read that, I was like, dude, you are announcing this at the wrong time. It's like, wait, you're telling me you're going to redistribute coins, you're going to take them from people's addresses, and you're going to create a Tether? That's a recipe for disaster.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be some kind of like fiat peg token. Like, there is way too much utility for it not to be existing in some fashion, whether it's finding legal loopholes like Tether or something that actually seeks some kind of regulatory approval. Like, it's going to happen. Like,
it will happen when the nation state ceases to exist. You're talking about the very business model of every country is by preventing that so that they can profit wildly off of printing cash. So yeah, it may happen. Maybe there may be a moment in time, like before we go full Bitcoin, but it's not going to happen at the same time that we have sort of federal government operating the way that matches anything like what we have now.
All right. Well, I guess any thoughts to round the day off, guys?
Cheap Bitcoins. Yay.
Yeah, I'm looking at the price. I think it's about time to pull back out the wallet, see if I can't get that cost average down.
I think we need to set up a referral link system. We need some like passive income streams.
Look, guys, the price is down. Candlesticks aren't cheap. If you want to see this show continue, click my referral link.
Okay, just click the link, lose all your money, and we'll get a percentage of all the money you lost for free. Just do it. Like, you guys love us, right? Like, just do it. Just lose your money so that we can get a percentage of it for free. Thank you.
And give me your Bitcoin.
But we don't
if
trade.
Amazon comes out with the competing coin, it's going to zero anyway. So what do you care?
Yeah, but guys, I just want to clarify, you know, even though we have all of these accounts at these exchanges, we definitely don't trade ever. Hashtag never trade. It's for degenerates.
Oh, I'm a degenerate. I act like a degenerate all the time. I just don't talk about it because my degeneracy is none of your business.
Wait, you trade?
Huh?
No.
But Shinobi, I think it's in our interest to make our degeneracy everyone's business.
Nah. It's don't make hasty trades, guys. Don't if you don't know what you're doing, don't sit here and think you're gonna call the bottom or call the top. Hodl, average in, and do not go run out and mortgage your house and dump everything into Bitcoin. Like, be reasonable, put in the loss that you can take.
Yeah, and I also think, like, because the thing with hodling is that I think people have a misconception that that means hold all the time, never sell, which, I mean, that's the position I take just because I don't want to get into the messiness of trading, so I've never bought or sold. But like, just because, like, there's nothing wrong with selling out of necessity for things you actually need. Like, that's perfectly reasonable. Like, if you want Bitcoin to be a currency that you use on, you know, for things like that, it makes sense to do that. But the reason we say hodl is for things like panic selling. We don't want you to sell out of fear, out of, you know, in the immediate moment because you're panicking. That's not a good reason to sell, because as far as I can remember, I don't think I've ever come across someone who was happy who had panic sold. They all pretty much regret doing that. But if you need it for necessity, like, there's nothing wrong with that. If you know, if you're kind of worried about the fact that it might go down, like, whatever, but don't do it because you're worried about the market crashing. That, like, we've seen these kinds of dips before. They happen all the time, especially this time of year. It's happened 3 years in a row, and maybe this one is bigger than normal because of circumstances, but so far it's completely within normal range as far as I can tell. So yeah.
Yeah, like real said about that. Yeah, like the holding thing, and you know, just I think, like, I, you know, was holding and then sold, but it's because, like, yeah, I reached a goal. It's like, you know, if you have a goal and you reached your goal and you feel like you know, it's time to take it off and reach it, but don't panic sell because of, you know, temporary emotions.
Yeah,
Totally.
if you're reacting on emotion, you're not trading, you're gambling, and gambling is not smart.
Don't
Yeah.
degenerate, regenerate.
The value of Bitcoin over the last 3 months has gone up quite a bit, right? Like, we have Lightning coming on board, we have advances in all kinds of things that's going to make this a really useful asset. The price is a reflection of, like, the average idiot's ability to understand that, right, and see what's going to happen. Those are two different things. You should buy value, especially if you think it's worth more than somebody will sell it to you for. And I think you'd be hard pressed to come up with any kind of rational understanding of what Bitcoin is and what it can do and the problems that it can solve that causes you to think that it's not a good deal right now. So I'm not saying buy. I'm not even saying don't sell. I'm just saying think it through that way, right? Come up with a number of what you think these things are worth, and then use that to make your buy sell decisions. Because if you're just chasing what other lemmings are doing, you're always going to be at a disadvantage because you're too far out of that inner circle of what game we're going to play this month, and you're just going to get fleeced.
Yeah, Booger's guy just said in that troll box that he panic sells out of necessity. I guess that's
roller coaster there.
I guess that's a certain niche in the trader scene, but okay.
Just keep enough US dollars to where you don't have to do that. That would be a good idea.
Yeah.
Oh no, I was. Oops. I just really dropped the mic.
Uh-oh.
No, I was just thinking that's kind of like a Freudian thing, something psychological, where it's like you have this need to like panic when you sell.
It's like self-destructive behavior. Like
Yeah.
he panic sells and then whips himself on his back.
Like Kevin Pham said, don't make impulsive life decisions. Go jerk off and think about it for a bit.
Oh, come on, man. We almost made it through a whole show.
Yeah,
man.
Blake ruined the last one. That's Blake's job, Shinobi.
All right though. All right. We all rounded off with our thoughts, guys.
I think so.
Yep.
I got not wrong.
All right. Well, guys,
I bet we've all broken your heart today.
if you enjoyed it, you can like and subscribe only voluntarily. If not, I don't know why you're here. No promises, but hopefully we should have a ZK Snacks out in the next few days. Until then, or the next episode. See you later, guys.
Hey, everyone.